Rachel Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution. So the two stars hate each other, and then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to...
Hard. And it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist, so can other things, and I will be okay.
Just when it felt like Hollywood was finally moving past its era of performative wonkiness, Rachel Zegler, star of Disney's upcoming Snow White remake, yanked us right back into the mess. Because apparently, these days in Hollywood, simply acting in a movie isn't enough. Every press tour now has to feel like a TED Talk explaining why everything made before 2016 is offensive and outdated. But when Bill Maher catches a whiff of virtue signaling, he doesn't just roll his eyes, he shreds it apart. And in his latest segment, Maher unleashed a brutal, no-holds-barred takedown of the Snow White disaster. And Ziegler was front and center. There's a lot to break down here. So let's skip the small talk and dive right into Maher's scathing commentary.
Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution. So the two stars...
We'll roll the clip in just a second, but first, for those of you who might be a little out of the loop, here's a quick recap. Rachel Zegler stars as Snow White, and Gal Gadot plays the evil queen. Simple enough, right? Well, things got complicated in the lead-up to the film's release. That's because Ziegler decided to publicly show her support for Palestine, right in the middle of one of the most sensitive and volatile global conflicts in recent memory. Why did that cause backlash? Because Gal Gadot, her co-star, is a former member of the Israeli Defense Forces. The internet erupted. The backlash was immediate. Reports even surfaced claiming that Gadot received serious threats, enough that Disney was forced to increase security for her and her family. And when Ziegler was asked whether her comments had sparked unnecessary tension or potentially put her co-star in danger, she didn't back down. She doubled down. Which brings us to the clip you're about to see. Let's go back to Bill Maher's takedown and unpack exactly what happened next.
They couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work.
And honest golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
No, it's 7 of them.
That has, and there's seven. Dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right. This is demeaning. And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
Maybe it's time the so-called progressive left dropped the label entirely. Because what we're seeing here feels less like progress and more like straight-up regression. The absurdity? Off the charts. Most of us grew up loving Snow White for what it was, a timeless fairy tale. And let's be honest, the original creators weren't exactly trying to push any modern ideological agenda. But fast forward to today, and even the inclusion of actual dwarfs in Snow White is now considered problematic. Why? Because it might reinforce stereotypes. So instead of casting talented actors with dwarfism, a group that's already severely underrepresented in Hollywood, Disney went with CGI. Genius, right? Actually, no. This move doesn't solve anything. In fact, it makes it worse. It erases opportunities from a marginalized community, all in the name of inclusivity. Somehow, Disney calls that progress. But let's call it what it really is: hypocrisy dressed up as virtue. Cutting people out of roles they've historically held just to score ideological brownie points. That's not progress. That's corporate cowardice. And sadly, it gets worse. Here's a clip of Rachel Zegler sharing her thoughts on being woke. Brace yourselves, this one's a cringe fest.
A little bit about your version of Snow White?
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age, and there's such an emphasis on what it really means to be the fairest of them all. And for Snow White, it's coming to terms with finding herself and finding her inner voice and finding a sense of agency so that she can be a just ruler and a wonderful queen, because there's another one in town.
Did you catch it? The sarcasm dripping from Rachel Zegler's voice? The subtle shade, or not so subtle, she throws at her co-star, Gal Gadot? Oh, it's there. And it's intentional. To Ziegler, Gal isn't just a fellow actress. She represents something larger, traditional values, classic Hollywood femininity, maybe even a touch of old-school conservatism. And in Rachel's eyes, that makes her a threat. Because in this new Hollywood, the one driven by ideology instead of story, Ziegler has positioned herself as the face of a brave new woke utopia. The problem? That vision is wildly out of touch. It's self-righteous. And honestly, it borders on delusional. But here's the real issue. The activist class in Hollywood isn't just out of touch, they are vindictive. It's no longer enough to simply disagree. If you challenge their worldview, you must be labeled, silenced, or pushed aside. And we'll dig into that toxic mindset in just a moment. But first, here's another clip of Rachel Zegler doing what she does best, speaking with unwavering confidence while pushing ideology like it's her full-time job.
1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could...
I warned you, this was always heading straight into cringe territory. And now here we are, knee-deep in yet another so-called reimagining that feels more like a political lecture than actual storytelling. Why does the modern activist left seem hell-bent on dismantling everything people once loved? Snow White used to be a simple, beloved fairy tale, a story passed down through generations. But now, it's been repackaged into a problematic parable. Somewhere along the way, someone decided the prince wasn't a romantic figure, but a creepy stalker. What was once a magical tale of love is now framed as a warning against patriarchal oppression. And it doesn't stop there. The agenda-driven machine keeps turning, rewriting, rebranding, and repurposing every classic story to fit a narrow ideological worldview. Romance, outdated. Wonder and whimsy, replaced with moral lectures and activism-based life lessons. Honestly, I miss the days when films were made to entertain, not preach. When studios cared more about telling meaningful stories than checking every correct cultural box. If this trend keeps going, we'll need actual fairy tales just to remember a time when storytelling made sense. And if you think Rachel Zegler's recent controversies were the spark that started all this, think again. Let's rewind to a tweet she posted right after Donald Trump won the 2016 election. I find myself speechless. In the midst of all this, another 4 years of hatred, leaning us toward a world I wouldn't want to live in. A world that would force my daughter to have a baby she doesn't want. A world that is fearful. I shouldn't be this shocked, but I am. I am heartbroken. I am here with you, to cry, to yell, to hug, and to wax poetic. I echo Ethel Kane's words, may Trump supporters and Trump himself never know peace. That wasn't just a frustrated voter venting online. That was a signal. Rachel Zegler isn't just another Hollywood activist. She's become a symbol of the extreme ideological direction that Disney, and much of Hollywood, seems determined to follow. In Ziegler's worldview, life seemingly begins only at birth, everything before that. Inconvenient, irrelevant. But this isn't just about her personal opinion. It reflects a deeper cultural shift, one that many people find deeply unsettling. Traditionally, things like pregnancy and motherhood are celebrated. Becoming a grandmother is considered a joyful milestone across cultures. But in today's woke narrative, pregnancy is often framed as a burden, an obstacle, something to be dismissed like an unwanted delivery. It's a stark contrast to the values many still hold dear. And what makes it even more baffling is the hypocrisy. The same crowd that fiercely defends trees, animals, and even fictional characters suddenly turns quiet when it comes to defending life at its earliest stage. This inconsistency isn't just frustrating, it's repelling audiences. And the results are showing up at the box office. Take Snow White, for example. According to reports, it's made around $96 million, against a monstrous $270 million budget. Experts say it needs at least $500 million just to break even. At this pace, that looks unlikely. The bottom line is simple. When studios prioritize activism over storytelling, audiences notice, and they are responding with their wallets.
Moment for Rachel Zegler and Snow White, because there is an update in that story today. There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece. Was it Variety? Talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little, "Yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her." And she did it and got like millions of views, and they were like, good job, Rachel. And then she, like, minutes later followed it up with, and never forget, free Palestine. This is just like a few months after 10/7. It was like, it hadn't even been a year. And they were like, my God, what?
And isn't her co-star Jewish?
Yes, Gal Gadot, whatever.
Gadot.
I mean, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's Jewish, and apparently this actually...
Rachel Zegler is quickly turning into the albatross around Disney's neck. No matter how much controversy she stirs up, they just can't seem to cut her loose. At this point, she's less of a rising star and more of a dark cloud hovering over Snow White, dragging it closer and closer to what might become one of the biggest flops in Hollywood history. Honestly, they might as well rebrand it Woke White and the 7 box office bombs. Because if Zegler and Disney had focused less on ideological preaching and more on creating a fun, magical movie, maybe this wouldn't be shaping up to be one of the most embarrassing chapters in Disney's recent history. But instead of delivering enchantment, they delivered a lecture. Instead of charm and fairytale wonder, they gave audiences a full-on social justice sermon. And the public's reaction? A very clear, no thanks. Now Disney's in a bind. They are stuck with a lead actress who's alienated a huge part of the fan base, a film nobody really wanted, and a box office disaster waiting to happen. Maybe next time, they'll remember why people go to the movies in the first place. To be entertained, not scolded. Apparently, someone, either at Disney or on Zegler's PR team, finally realized just how much damage her comments were doing to the film's reputation. So, they had her issue what looked like a last-minute, half-hearted apology video. Take a look.
And it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist, so can other things, and I will be...
Here's one thing that's become crystal clear about the so-called woke crowd. When money's on the line, they'll do anything to save face, even if it means rushing out a half-baked, insincere apology video the second public backlash starts hitting the bottom line. But let's be real. Does anyone actually believe Rachel Zegler, or Disney, for that matter, are truly sorry? Not a chance. They are not apologizing because they've had a change of heart. They are apologizing because they got called out. This is damage control, plain and simple. From where I stand, neither Ziegler nor Disney has shown any genuine reflection. If anything, they are probably doubling down behind closed doors, convinced that audiences are just too ignorant to understand their so-called vision. But here's the truth. The only thing that might finally force Disney to wake up and rethink its obsession with ideology over storytelling is a financial reckoning. And at the rate things are going, that wake-up call could be just around the corner. Because people are tired. They are tired of being talked down to. Tired of watching their childhood classics get hijacked and repurposed into platforms for political messaging. They don't want lectures. They want stories. They want magic. They want to feel something again, not sit through 2 hours of ideological scolding. And if Disney keeps choosing activism over authentic storytelling, they'll keep getting the same response from audiences: empty theaters, declining revenue, lost trust. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.